This morning we're going to have a brief preview of the Triumph job costing. I've already got the screen open, so let's just jump in and have a look. We'll go to job costing, transaction entry, and I'm going to start by just doing a job quote. So I'll pick a new debtor, and what do we need in here? We might put a purchase order number in, put a description, now we can also have a much larger description if you want, so what I'm just going to do here is just copy and paste a couple of times just to illustrate that, and saves me doing some typing. We've got various places where we can actually group the jobs. I'm not going to change any of these things. I'm just going to click through to show you that there's drop down boxes which you can set up depending upon how you want to set your situation up. The other tab here shows us how we're going to mark things up. In terms of labour, what price level we're charging at, and that's set up elsewhere in the system. Mark up in percentages, materials, pricing, etc. I'm going to tick this box here because what it does here, it enables us to have a pre-job quote, so we can track any costs on the job before the actual job or quotation is confirmed. So just jump into the lines. We've got a default cost center in here. I might just go and add another one in here. We'll put one in called setup, etc. So I'll go to this first cost center, and I'm just going to pop a few labour items in. I'm not going to explain a lot about this other than it will be fairly obvious when we're actually clicking through these things. So if you bear with me for a moment, I'll just append rather than spend a lot of time explaining. I think that'll be fairly self-evident as you see these things clicking through. So there's a couple of labour items in that cost centre there. We might put a subcontract in here, in which case we'll go to one of our creditors, service, and we might call this quite of that, and we've already discussed that with our supplier. $450 is what he's quoted. Whoops, wrong place. Delete. He's quoted us a cost here of $450. Our markup marks it up automatically to that price in there. We'll go to our next cost center here, and I'll just pop in put in some labour in here too, I think. And we'll put that down for 8 hours in there, and we'll go to the materials, and I'll just go to our inventory list, and I'll just double click on a few things in here. Okay, we won't purchase that, we'll append that. Okay, I'm satisfied. There are all the items I want to put in here. I could be going in for putting direct purchases, putting some overheads. We might do an overhead, I think, might be useful just to illustrate that. In here you can set up as many different types of overheads you wish, so we'll assume for this particular project we're going to have 5 courier charges in there, and click OK. And we'll do this as a customer quotation, preview that, and that's our quotation. I'll just drop that down a little bit so we can see more of it on screen. Now the format here, we're using Crystal Reports, and that means we can change the look and feel of this form to be whatever you want it to be. Close that down. So that's the job gone in as a quote. We might now just go and back into that quote. I can come in here and I can edit it and change it and do whatever we want, because there might have been a bit of negotiating with the client. However, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the status of that to a job order. So by saving that, I've now converted that to a job order. So if I go into our job costing now and job process and pick our job, which is this one. I can now start putting some costs against it. So let's just assume we'll put Clive Walsh down and under cost centre. Not too sure what labour activity we had him in there for, but doesn't really matter for here. So we put in 3 hours of that. Click OK. That's in against the job. So that's one item. So if I was now to go and inquire on that job, I could now quickly look at the figures, and we've got the charges which we've got against the job. Quite simple. So I can progressively add charges against that job as that job progresses. And it'll come to the day where we need to invoice it, in which case we'd simply go to debtors, transactions, default invoice in here, pick the debtor, and I think that was the one there. We'll go to the lines. It's going to be a job. Which jobs have we got in there for the debtor? That's the one got in there. Invoice as quoted. If I leave that ticked on, it'll invoice for the full job amount. If I tick that off, it'll invoice progressively as we're putting the line items in, but it will invoice it as quoted. So click OK, and that really is just a one-click process. Preview that, and we've now got our job invoice, and that's the quoted job. So if we're now to go back to our job inquiry screen, job costing, file maintenance and inquiry, pick up our job, and look at our figures, we've now got the full picture on the job. That's a summary of the story. So, but I might prefer to see that in a little bit more detail. So I'll go to one of our standard reports and selections in here. I'll just get that particular job. Now I'll need to go back here again because I want job status not open, because that one's now closed, and preview that. Let's just make this a little bit larger to see a bit more of it. So this is the story on the job. Of course, we've only put in one labour item in there, but in terms of how the job's going, that's the story on job costing. We'll probably do another session on job costing where we go into a little bit more detail. This session was really just to give you an overview to show you what functions, or some of the functions which are in the system.